John Stinner is a fine man and a remarkable human being who cares deeply about others and about trying to make the quality of life in Nebraska better, whether it be in his community, in his garden, at his church, school, business, or the Nebraska legislature. He tries to make the quality of life and the security of being in Nebraska better.
For me, it was easy to come to work, and I had a passion to be a community banker.
John has become a very good friend. He was, my boss for many years. John and Rita are what we call the all-American family, the American dream, where he came and he had the knowledge and the skills to help banks, and he turned that into being an owner of a bank, growing a bank, and really living the American dream.
Well, John Stinner grew up in Pittsburgh, and he got here and he never left. John is a community builder. He's a businessman that was willing to take many risks, and he's successful as a result of his risk-taking abilities.
I was fortunate enough to play on a pretty good high school football team, got recruited to Nebraska, and got a 4-year scholarship to play football, and then I signed also for baseball. I stayed around and got a teacher assistantship, so I walked out with a master's degree in economics. Well, the one great thing about public accounting, and it was a wonderful start for me because it taught me the debits and credits of business. It was a very disciplined environment, and it helped me, and I carried a lot of that forward to the banking situation and certainly even the legislature. During the ag crisis, there was a lot of banks failing. They'd call me and say, this bank's in trouble, see what you can do. I'd go in and review the bank, hire and fire as I saw fit, and try to turn the bank around. And that one time, according to one of the examiners, I had the 2 worst banks in Iowa and the 2 worst banks in Nebraska. All of them I got turned around. One of them happened to be in Baird, Nebraska, and they were about ready to close that bank. Got a capital forbearance put on them. We managed to turn that bank around, and that's how really I got out here.
John's specialty was to turn banks around and make them profitable, which is exactly what he did. He took Gering State Bank, probably started, I want to say, with 10 employees. Grew it. When I joined the bank, they were expanded into Scotts Bluff, and he just continued to grow the bank. And he always had the belief of banking being in a rural area. I want to be all things for my customer.
Well, our state's grown, and much of that growth comes from the Hispanic population.
28% of our population happened to be Hispanic. Less than 50% of the Hispanic population actually had a banking relationship.
He saw a need to help promote that.
It was important for John, for his staff, to be able to communicate with people that were bilingual. And so he started the first bilingual bank here in Scottsbluff, Gering, and it's been very beneficial, and other banks take the lead from that.
We helped a lot of people's lives, and he was leading that. And you do that because you care about the community, you care about people.
He left a fabulous career here and was elected to the Nebraska legislature.
I thought this might be a really good way of giving back in a different type of way, back to Bluff County and the constituents here.
Immediately, I think the second year was put as chair of appropriations, which was huge.
Well, we were $1.2 billion in the red, so we went from shortfall of $1.22 billion to in excess of $1 billion.
I don't think anybody understands that budget like John Stinner did. He knew it like the back of his hand. And when we left, his goal is to leave the state in a better position than when we came in.
John is more than deserving for this Nebraska Chamber of Commerce Hall of Fame award.
I guess I look at John as almost a mentor and a father figure. What he did to help me as a person, as a father, he's always kind of been a go-to guy.
I think his legacy will be that he was a builder, a futuristic thinker. I'm just proud to have served with him for 8 years. When I needed him, he was there. and we just have a wonderful relationship, and congratulate him for getting this award. It's well deserved.
John and I love it here. Western Nebraska has been a land of opportunity for us, and we are very grateful for what this community has given us, and the state of Nebraska, too.
You know, I guess the legacy is that I did the best I could. Hopefully did some good and some long-term good. You know, certainly from the legislative side, but certainly from the community side as well. To me, it's been a wonderful journey, a wonderful ride.
Wow, what a night, huh? Well, first of all, I want to thank the Chamber and the University of Nebraska's College of Business. That's where I got my start. I came out here to try to play football. Wasn't real successful at it, but at least I got my education and stayed on, got a master's degree, and the rest is history. But I want to start by first letting you in on a big secret. The best business deal I ever did, by far, is marrying that woman down there, Rita. I don't know how I did it, because we've been married now, I think, 52 years, if my addition and subtraction's any good. Been some ups and downs, I will tell you that, and she'll tell you that, but she's been the stabilizer and the rock, and I truly appreciate it. I did put notes together so I wouldn't forget the people that are important to me tonight. My son John, who runs a borough, actually a city, around Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is where I'm from. He took time out of his busy schedule, and he has two young boys, 13 and 11, that are highly involved in sports. So he made a sacrifice to be here. Thank you, John, for being here. Appreciate it. I also have Ann Ford, Rita's sister, came down from Missouri Valley. If you don't know, that's where Rita actually was from, was Missouri Valley. So everybody asked me, did you marry a Nebraska girl? No, I married an Iowa girl. So thank you, Ann, for being here. And, you know, what would tonight be without the three apostles? You know, we got Matt, I'm John, and now I have Mark over here. And, you know, Mark's become. He is a great friend of mine, but he also was a great legislator, and he actually carried the Imagine Nebraska Act, which is the big economic development act for the state. So, thank you, Mark. Now, it was kind of interesting. I saw a newspaper article right after we left the legislature, and Lou Ann Linehan was quoted as saying, you know, those three apostles, they had a lot of power in the legislature, and they controlled stuff. And I'm kind of thinking to myself, I never thought my vote was anything to deal with power or control, or red or blue, or left or right. I think I can speak for all of us, the apostles. We were just trying to vote and do the right thing for the state of Nebraska. You know, I learned early on about teammates. In high school, I played on a really good football team, and I really understood that having great teammates was really a formula for success. And obviously, I learned that in college as well, but I carried it on in business. And I have three of the people who were significant in building the bank with me tonight, and they are sitting at my table. And I want to introduce them as well. Kathy Carney was with me 16 years, or I think that's right, as the marketing and PR person for the bank. She was instrumental in helping us build the bank. I have Chris and Holly Nelson. Chris actually worked for me for 20 years, or worked with me for 20 years. We actually were the second bank in the state of Nebraska to have an investment center, and Chris grew that, and it certainly was one of those quivers, arrows in our quiver as far as retaining customers and helping customers grow their wealth. So I appreciate Chris and Holly for being here. And Dan and Connie Carter are here tonight. And Dan I got him from the Farm Credit Service, so he's pretty good in ag loans, but he also is very good in management. And I could not have been in the legislature without Dan running the bank. So thank you, Dan, for being here, and thank you for the kind words. You know, I guess I went through that in the film. I had no idea what the film was even going to be about, but I did start with the University of Nebraska, and that was a great starting place for me, and I want to thank the university. It gave me the fundamentals to build on. Public accounting was next, and obviously those financial tools and disciplines were the one I carried throughout my business career. I do want to give a shout out to Jim Stewart Jr., who's no longer, unfortunately, is no longer with us, but he was also was my boss at First Commerce. First Commerce was the holding company for NBC and a group of banks throughout the state of Nebraska. And that's really where I learned about holding companies, about in-depth knowledge about banks. So when it ended up, as it so happened in the 80s, there was an ag crisis, and I was running some troubled banks, and Baird was one of those banks. But I was given an opportunity to take a look at buying the assets and assuming the liabilities of Commerce Savings Scottsbluff, about a $3 million industrial bank. And I was 35, 36 years old. But I thought, wow, this is a great time to start a bank. You know, the two banks in Gering had failed. Two S&Ls were about ready to fail. The sugar factory had failed. Everything was in chaos, but I thought, wow, this is a great time to start a bank. Wouldn't do it again, but in any event, these are the people that were instrumental. I just had wonderful employees. I will tell you, it was easy to go to work. I love being a community banker. Last, but certainly not least, and this may be hard for me, a couple of weeks ago, I lost one of my best friends. Walt was not only a friend, he was a mentor and a teacher. He took time to explain the legislative process to me, the history of the legislature. He was always there to answer my questions about legislation, initiatives, and it became just a wonderful friend. Not only am I going to miss him, the state of Nebraska, the legislature is going to miss Walt. Walt Radcliffe was bigger than life. He was somebody I could always depend on going to and getting the unvarnished truth. And boy, there was some colorful language in that. And I always liked it when Walt says, you know, that reminds me of the time, and he'd launch into this long story, a wonderful story. There was always some kind of lesson to it, but he was a great storyteller as well. Anyhow, Lincoln, for me, is never going to be the same without Walt. My hope is that he's walking off the 18th hole, having made a 30-foot birdie putt, and is headed to the clubhouse for cocktails. So thank you. Rest in peace, Walt. Thank you very much.